Hey everyone, I'm Megyn Kelly. Welcome to the Megyn Kelly Show. We are continuing to follow the latest developments in the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Yesterday, the alleged killer, Tyler Robinson, was formally charged by Utah authorities who confirmed they are seeking the death penalty for aggravated murder. The media reaction has been shocking, but not surprising, again, with reporters and pundits claiming the motive is unclear. Despite alleged shooter Tyler Robinson telling his parents there's too much evil, and he, referring to Charlie, spreads too much hate. That's according to the charging documents. And in text messages to his male roommate, quote, transitioning to female, which cannot be done, Robinson wrote, referring to Kirk, quote, I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. Joining me now to react to all of this, Victor Davis Hanson. He's the host of the Victor Davis Hanson Show. Don't miss a moment. Subscribe to this show on YouTube and follow me on Insta, Facebook, and X. Recently, I learned about colostrum. Well, I mean, anybody who's had a baby kind of knows about colostrum. It's the very first milk, known as liquid gold, that babies receive from their mothers after birth. It's packed with proteins, natural growth factors, antimicrobial peptides that work to enhance your immune response, reduce inflammation, and more. I want to tell you about cowboy colostrum, which offers the highest quality cow colostrum available. You could drink colostrum from a cow. It's 100% made in America from 100% American grass-fed cows. Now, look, you're already drinking cow's milk. Whether you know it or not, you're already kind of being breastfed from a cow if you drink milk. This is just getting you the very best stuff that comes from the cow. Don't overthink it. Just go for it. It's gonna leave you feeling satisfied. It's gonna give you high protein. That's what everybody's after. It is made with delicious natural ingredients, no artificial flavors. All you have to do is add 3-gram scoop of chocolate Madagascar colostrum from a cow. Who doesn't want that? Vanilla or strawberry into your coffee or your smoothie. It's going to be a fun conversation piece. For a limited time, get up to 25% off your entire order. Just head on over to cowboycolostrum.com/MK. Use the code MK at checkout. 25% off when you use the code MK at cowboycolostrum.com/MK. After you purchase, they're going to ask you where you heard about them. You can tell them our show sent you and that there was no laughing on this ad, no matter what they've heard. Thank you. Victor, great to have you. Also the author of the book, The End of Everything, which is now out in paperback. By the way, it's been updated with new info that you're going to want to read. This is such gaslighting. We went through how many days after we saw what was written on the bullets of them saying, no, don't believe what's on the bullet casings. He was a right-winger. He came from a MAGA family, and he was MAGA. But went from days of that. By the way, here's just one example. Jimmy Kimmel, this is him on Monday, refusing to acknowledge that he was a left-winger, notwithstanding but the fact that we already had this information from the Utah governor that he was indoctrinated into the left-wing ideology. We saw what he had written on the bullets. Just one example of one prominent media figure refusing to accept that. Here it is in SOT 9.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
Okay, so it's the right wing who's in denial about this young man's affiliations. By the way, he was not a kid. He was 22 years old. We went through that. Then it was made perfectly clear over the past 2 days that this kid, to use Jimmy's word, has been completely indoctrinated into left-wing ideology. His parents said that. His parents said he had moved farther left politically. He had gotten very into the messaging of the left wing around gay rights and trans ideology. And then we see what was written on the bullet casings. And now the message is shifting from the left to, well, we still might not know his motivation, but really, who cares? Listen to CNN analyst Juliette Kayyem, SOT 11B.
I heard the congressman on there saying, oh, we need to tone down the rhetoric. Well, will the rhetoric get toned down. I mean, again, I go back to what was on the bullet from this kid was fascism, and that's only coming from one side currently in this debate, and it's on every placard and every poster around the country. I mean,
I don't think we know the meaning of his message. We know his history.
Bella Ciao is an anti-fascist thing. It says fascists catch this.
Then I'll give you his history. Then I'll give you his history, right? Think about his history. His history, but this is not the.
Why are we debating that?
This is what
that's
why I wanted to tell you. This was my point, not
yours.
yours. This was my point, not yours. The point is, who cares? A man was killed, and you have yet to say political violence is bad, period. That's all that people want from the president. That's all. And we're getting the spin up of the you and this and what. Stop counting. Well, stop looking, because you're not going to divine a perfect motive in this case. I think we're looking for it. You're not going to divine it. We generally don't.
Okay, that was Friday, but she continued to double down on those sentiments as the days passed by. And then I'll end on this one for now. CNN's Caitlin Collins with Ted Cruz last night, when we heard everything. She's heard everything that you and I have heard. And this is what she says to Ted Cruz.
We don't have a motive yet. We don't know yet. We're waiting. Obviously, we've heard what the govenors had to say, what the FBI director said today.
Come on, we don't have a motive yet.
We know.
We don't have a motive yet.
What's happening with?
Really, that's CNN's position.
I mean, from law enforcement,
he just happened to fire the gun in celebration. You can't tell the motive.
Senator, that's not what I said. And I said law enforcement hasn't laid out a direct motive. They've laid out a lot of evidence here of these messages and what the shooter said to
They've said that he was a left-wing activist who hated
roommates.
Charlie Kirk. Pardon?
Senator, with all due respect, you know exactly what I'm saying. I'm not arguing with you politically. I'm saying that law enforcement has not put a specific motive. You know that there's a difference of what they're putting in a legal argument than what you're talking about. And you're not even we're not even arguing about the facts here.
What you just said is false,
Senator
Caitlin.
No.
Caitlin.
Good for Ted Cruz. He was 100% correct, and she was 100% wrong. And there's a reason they won't say what we are being told. I mean, that quote about him drifting over to the left considerably and endorsing gay rights and becoming indoctrinated by trans ideology, that's from his mother. Where do we get that? Law enforcement. But Caitlin Collins will not acknowledge that, nor will any on the left who are out there pretending it's all just a mystery. Maybe we'll never know, Victor.
Yeah, I think everybody knows what's going on. They project, and what they're deathly afraid of is that someone might use this tragedy, or this, not a tragedy, this act of evil, in the way that they took George Floyd and they rioted for 5 months. And when they were done, they pushed through no cash bail, defund the police, BLM, DEI mandates. And they feel that everybody operates in the same mindset that they do. So it's very important that they say there was no political motive here. It was probably a right-wing family. Don't dare do what we did. And of course, the people who have been commemorating his passing never had any desire to do that. They're not rioting, they're not arson, they're not torching courthouses or police precincts. They're not doing any of that. They're not getting free zones in the middle of cities, but they think they'll do that. And the irony about it is this was clear cut. That chat group of 20 or so people, they were from one ideology. The trans lover was one from. Everybody in his family said he had gone hard left. So that was unmistakable. But in the case of George Floyd, there were two things. There was a big debate whether his amphetamines or his prior COVID or his fentanyl use or resisting police had made him more vulnerable to what Officer Chauvin did. And there was a big debate about whether unarmed black men are inordinately shot as suspects. And everybody from Harvard economist Roland Fryer to the Washington Post said, given the encounters with black males between 19 and 40 with the police, and what were the percentage of the encounters versus being shot while unarmed, it was statistically no different than anybody else. And that was the fact. And yet they took that and they fabricated a whole myth that the police are on a rampage killing black males, and therefore we got to get this critical race theory, critical legal theory, all these Soros DA, and they did. They had a revolution for 4 years, and now they're saying to themselves, oh my gosh, that was successful, and now the right could do what we did. So we've got to nip it in the bud and stop all narratives that this was politically motivated and say it's both sides, it's a cycle of violence, and concentrate on ending assault weapons. You know, the irony is I have kind of a 30-06 that I inherited, the same rifle. It's not a Mauser, it's a Springfield, but it's a bolt action 30-06. And when these people talked about banning assault weapons, it's very slow firing, believe me, with a bolt action. And when Jasmine Crockett said, well, left-wing people can't shoot. Anybody that has, I'm a very bad shot, and I've been shooting that rifle since I was 12 years old. You can make that shot with an open peep sight or a buckhorn sight without a scope. It's not a hard shot to do, especially when you're elevated. So all this disinformation that we're going to ban assault weapons or handguns when the gun was a deer rifle, that's what it's used for, and it's a slow-firing gun. And for someone who's had 2 or 3 hours of experience, it's not difficult to do what this horrible person did. So all this, what I'm getting at, Megyn, this is all misinformation because they're projecting and they're terrified that the right would use their methodology, and the final irony is they're not. They never had any intention of rioting, protesting, driving through an agenda by using the death of Charlie Kirk in the way that
By
they
the way,
used
let me
George
just play
Floyd.
that Jasmine Crockett soundbite, which we have. Here it is.
When we look at it, please tell me who is fostering this gun culture, right? I mean, the reality is that the average person on the left probably couldn't make a shot from 200 yards because they haven't been playing with assault rifles since they were a little kid. Like, that is just the reality of how people on the left typically work. And if we believe that political violence is a problem in this country, if we believe that our children on campuses, just because they want to go out and have a day of free speech on campus, may be subjected to this kind of violence, then maybe we need to start talking about legislation that will keep these types of weapons out of certain people's hands. Now, whether or not this gentleman would have qualified under any type of laws that many of the Democrats have proposed, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah,
so left wing can't shoot guns because they're not good shooters. I mean, I'm sorry, but didn't we have 20 children shot 3 weeks ago at the Minneapolis school while the children were at the opening mass? That was a left wing crazed lunatic. Seemed pretty decent with the gun, unfortunately.
Yep, the person who shot Steve Scalise was a former Bernie Sanders activist.
The person who shot Trump.
Yep, same thing. They were pretty good shots. They seemed well acquainted. Everything she said actually was a lie. It wasn't an assault weapon. She doesn't know what an assault weapon is. It was a bolt action hunting deer rifle. As I said,
but that's important, Victor, because even on the left, when they're talking about they want assault weapons bans, that they think that's going to solve everything.
No,
this wouldn't have been banned. This gun would not have been banned under their assault weapons ban.
There's 500 million guns in the United States, and there's no way you're going to round them all up unless you want a police state. More importantly, when she said this gun culture on the right, there is a gun culture, and it is an illegal gun culture, and it's called inner city handguns. And that's where most people are killed. It's about 7% of people.
She should know that as a self-proclaimed woman from the hood. You know, if you believe her,
should.
That's her background.
She should. And she does know it. She knows it. She does know it. And she's lying, as she always does. And, you know, I think after we've seen this horrific last 2 weeks of the murder on the light rail of Irina Zaritska, yeah, and you saw Charlie Kirk, and there was the Auburn murder, and there was Queen. I think people are just tired of all of this demagoguery. And when Jasmine, I don't know why people, I mean, Jasmine Crockett was a upper middle class kid who went to prep school, and then she gets on television and adopts this fake inner city patois, and she spouts all this hatred and all this misinformation, and we're supposed to take her seriously. She's not a serious person. But the left is in full, you saw that with Kash Patel. They're in a full-fledged panic because they know that this violence is coming from left, that people who are identify as trans are overrepresented, not in all of what they do is they go back to all the shootings of the last 100 years when the trans phenomenon is about 10 years old. If you look at the most recent one, 5, 6 incidents, and you look at what scientists, psychologists, sociologists have said about the incidence of gender dysphoria in the general population, it's about 1 or 2 people per 100,000 prior to this sensationalism and fetish. So they know all that. And so what they're doing is transparent.
Let me ask you this, because some have taken it to an even more bizarre place. You know, you've got the he's MAGA crowd into the who cares, what does it matter crowd. And then you have like a truly bizarre strain of it was loving. He did it out of love. This is not a hater. This is somebody who was, well, I'll let Montel Williams put it in his own words here on CNN last night, Sod 8.
There are people who are trying to pigeonhole this as a leftist thing and a right thing. And what we're really talking about, hear me because I'm going to throw you when I say this. We're talking about a love-torn child, a kid. This is probably his first real relationship. And somebody was disparaging the person that he loved. He sat on that building for 30 minutes before he took the shot. Why did he wait until the first word trans came up? Then he took the shot. You think he heard it? He could hear it? I think he could hear it. I think he also, I don't believe he was motivated politically. I think this was motivated emotionally. I think this was a emotionally stunted person who literally, when I say it this way, just hear me, tried to defend his significant other, not trying to defend some ideology.
Okay, not for nothing, but the lower third on that whole SOT, which was on CNN, which is Caitlin Collins' network, said docs, and they're referring to the indictment. Docs. Suspect's mom said he had grown pro-gay rights, pro-trans ideology. That's on CNN at an hour that follows Caitlin Collins, but the hour before Caitlin Collins was telling Ted Cruz, we don't know the motive. Why don't you read your lower third? It's literally referring to the indictment documents that federal officials, that state officials used to actually bring charges against him. Try reading; it could help you. And then they platform this Montel Williams, who's lost his mind, trying to make it sound like a beautiful love story, like this guy should be valorized. And I'll let you take that one, and then we'll get to this moron Matt Gutman on ABC.
Yeah, I don't think if anybody said that Derek Chauvin was under stress and he was he had some deranged view that he was protecting his wife from inner city crime, and therefore he put his knee on, everybody would have thought that that's not only absurd, but amoral and sick. And it would have been. Nobody said that. And yet we're supposed to take this guy seriously. And then what he's thinking, it's just fantastic. He's saying that the shooter positioned himself somewhere between 150 and 200 yards away and said to himself, I'm going to shoot only when a trans question comes up, and I can hear it very well. And even if he could hear it on the amplification, he's going to sit there and predicate that. And what would that show if he did do that? That he loved a particular person, or that he was a deranged trans activist in general, as his chat group suggested. So any way you interpret what he said is insane. And I don't know why they put those people on. They're just continual embarrassments. They don't know. They have no logic. They're irrational.
Well, like Victor,
they're angry.
It's just so maddening because he's talking about it like as if Charlie Kirk had gotten up there and said, let's say this guy was in a normal heterosexual relationship, as if Charlie Kirk had been out there saying, blonde women are all loose women and you shouldn't marry them. Something like it. And he was with a blonde woman and he was out there to avenge his. Okay, that would be a bizarre set of circumstances, but I guess then you could say, all right, he was trying to stand up for his partner. The whole thing about the partner is political. Charlie had taken a position on the trans, whatever, it's not rights, on the trans indoctrination issue. Charlie had been very clear that a man cannot become a woman. And this guy was with a trans person in the middle of a transition and obviously connected to other trans people, if you believe what we're seeing online. And on top of that, had a thing for furries, as evidenced by his meme, which is very hand in glove with the whole trans community. He wrote about it on his bullet casing, And by the way, he was subscribed or he was on a furry website, according to the FBI. So that is a political argument that's being hotly debated right now and has been for the past few years in the United States. And Charlie Kirk was very outspoken on it. How does he reduce that to a love quarrel, a defending his love, and totally divorce it from the politics?
Well, he does it because they have a list of excuses. And excuse number one was he was apolitical. That didn't work. Excuse number two, he was a right-wing inter-MAGA feud narrative. That didn't work. Now they're down to excuse three, that it was a personal love relationship that showed how trans people are so devoted to him. That didn't work. I think all they're going to be left with is that they're going to have to go, and I think they already have, Megyn, full Luigi Mangione, that he was a heroic person that is an iconic figure and belongs in the pantheon of leftist heroes. And we're going to name an opera after him, and I think that's next. That's the fourth narrative. Because another thing that people don't talk about, and it was true of DeCarlos Williams, there is a general perception in these killers, whether they do it out of racial motivations or ideology, there's two assumptions they make. Number one, if they do it, either people will try to contextualize it or praise it, as we saw with Robinson on the left, and we saw with the mayor of Charlotte. Immediately, she said, don't demonize the homeless. This is not race. Dude can't rest. And they know that there'll always be some excuse or even praise. And second, there will not be consequences. When he went into that rail car, he had 14 times he committed a felony and never really paid a serious price. And he thought he could do almost anything and get away with it. And the same thing, if you look at the cheery attitude, I thought he had to be taken out, lift up the computer, there's the note. He was acting in the same manner that he thought Luigi Mangione was going to get off. And until we just say to ourselves, we don't really care what your motivation is, we don't care what you say, we don't care if you have a beautiful mansion or you're homeless, we don't care if you claim that you're on that, we're just going to treat what you did. And there's going to be sure and swift punishment if you have after your fair trial, and should you be found guilty. And that's going to be deterrent. And you may think that's biblical or ancient or old-fashioned, but there's a 2,500-year history that it works.
Well, you're making a point about consequences to the actions. And when we administer the consequences, no, we shouldn't care. We should look at the end result of what they did. Luigi killed Brian Thompson in cold blood with absolutely no justification. And that's what Tyler Robinson clearly did to Charlie. But it is valuable to know the motive when we try to figure out why did this happen and can we prevent it?
Yes, that was my point. They have two things going for them. They have a motive because they think if they act horrifically on some leftist cause that they are going to be famous. They come out of the woodwork because they feel the general climate says people are persecuting trans people should be given exemptions. Joe Biden says half the country is semi-fascist. Fascist everywhere. All of our generals have called the president a fascist, a Nazi. Mark Milley called him a fascist. So you kill a fascist and you'll be sort of like one of the assassins who tried to kill Mussolini and Hitler. You will be praised. That's the motivation. They want to be a famous political activist who really, spoke violence to power or something. And then second, they think I can get away with it. Yeah, they think I can get away with it. Can you
imagine, God forbid anything ever happened to Barack Obama, but can you imagine if some shooter had actually taken a shot at Barack Obama and, God forbid, actually hit him? And we found out it was because he was MAGA and he was deeply offended by the deplorables comment that Hillary had made, or the bitter clingers comment that Barack Obama had made. And so he had turned on Democrats. He thought they were demonizing Republicans. And his wife, maybe this guy, the shooter in this fake scenario, is an independent, but his girlfriend or his wife is diehard MAGA. Do you think Montel Williams would be on CNN saying he did it out of love? It was a loving thing, really. That's what did it. We all know the answer to that. And that brings me to Matt Gutman of ABC.
Just before could I just say one thing? He would be banned for life, but we all know the answer to your question. You don't even have to talk about a threat of physical violence. A clown at the Missouri State Fair put on a Barack Obama mask, and he was just sort of like clowns do at rodeos, but it was a mask of Obama. And the administration went ballistic, and they banned him for life for being at that fairgrounds and rodeo. That was just wearing a mask that made fun of Obama. So yeah, we know the answer to that.
They would not be rewriting it as a Romeo and Juliet type story. Oh, it's so sad. Look at the love he felt for his partner. He did it out of love. And not to be outdone, here's Matt Gutman, a straight news reporter, a national correspondent for ABC News, describing the text messages between the alleged shooter, Tyler Robinson, and the defendant, and his girlfriend, his boyfriend, who was trying to become his girlfriend, in which he kept calling the lover my love as he was confessing. I mean, he was going through line after line about how I've got to get my gun, don't talk to the police, my love. And this was this ABC News reporter's take on that.
We have seen an alleged murder with such specific text messages about the alleged murder weapon, where it was hidden, how it was placed, what was on it, but also it was very touching in a way that I think many of us didn't expect. A very intimate portrait into this relationship between the suspect's roommate and the suspect himself, with him repeatedly calling his roommate, who is transitioning, calling him my love, and I want to protect you, my love. So it was this duality of someone who the attorney said not only jeopardized the life of Charlie Kirk and the crowd, but was doing it in front of children, which is one of the aggravating circumstances of this case. And on the other hand, he was, speaking so lovingly about his partner. So a very interesting and, as Pierre said, riveting press conference, David.
First of all, he did not say in these text messages, I just want to protect you, my love. That's an invention by this reporter. It didn't happen. Second of all, there's nothing very touching. It's not a very intimate portrait of the duality. And he refers to him, the partner was identified male at birth and now identifies. There's no such thing as identify. He's speaking all the language of the left with their buzz terms and rewriting this as a very touching love story, Victor.
Yeah, well, he said that we didn't expect it. Actually, we did expect it because we've seen a long history of the left doing this. We saw one of the Sarnoff brothers on the cover of Rolling Stone as if he was some photogenic movie star. We saw an opera named after Luigi Mangione. We saw the Taylor Lorenz Gaga interview about him. I think there was somebody on cable news who said, well, Robinson might not be as iconicized as Luigi Mangione because he wasn't as handsome. So there is a idea on the left
crystal ball.
Yes, that they feel that these young killers, they try to romanticize them and try to make them into folk heroes. And part of that narrative is that they're good looking or they're intimate or they're warm or they're sincere. And what he should have said is he was talking to the murderer was talking to his boyfriend and was talking about rationalization why he killed somebody premeditatively, but that's not what he wanted to convey. But we expect that. Every time there's a young shooter who's politically motivated from the left, we know that the left is going to romanticize him and try to make him into a Hollywood rock star or a sensitive therapeutic figure.
They're determined. And now, by the way, today, Matt Gutman was forced to come out and say he deeply regrets that his words did not make clear what he was trying to do, which was to underscore the jarring contrast between this cold-blooded assassination of Charlie and the personal disturbing texts read aloud by the Utah County attorney at the press conference. I'm going to say this to Matt Gutman. Ask yourself, again, whether, God forbid, someone like Barack Obama had been assassinated instead of Charlie Kirk. And we found the assassin's texts confessing to his lover, calling the lover my love. Do you think there's any world in which you would have gone out there and talked about how very touching the texts were, about this duality that gives us a window into their intimate relationship, and used the word touching twice? We all know the answer. This is his own bias, his own priors coming up in his reporting, and it's dangerous to reshape the narrative. You know, you talk about the Luigi thing, Victor. Yesterday in New York, as his charges were, two of the main ones were thrown out, the terrorism charge against him was thrown out by a New York City judge. There were throngs of supporters outside the courthouse, male and female. But the women were out there like Manson's girls, like in love with this Luigi, like he's some sort of a hero. And the guys were no better. They were dressed as like Luigi from the Super Mario's thing. He's become a folk hero. And you're right. I agree with you. It's starting on the left with respect to the Charlie killer as well. This here, listen to this. This is an undergrad student at Oberlin College. Now, obviously, this is a leftist institution. But just here's a window into what's happening on our college campuses right now, which looks very much to me like what happened outside of the Luigi hearing and what we saw on CNN. Here's SOT 30.
So the day after Charlie Kirk died, I was in class. My teacher said, I'll give you 5 minutes for hot takes about Charlie Kirk. I was the only person who raised their hand. I said, I've been saying we need to bring back political assassinations. I don't feel bad, and I don't think that everyone deserves the right to free speech. I think some people should be afraid to express their opinion in public. And you know what people start saying? They start saying, oh, you know what? There was a school shooting on that same day. And how can you claim to oppose school shootings and oppose gun violence when you're now celebrating Charlie Kirk dying? As if those two forms of violence are the same. The worst thing that was said in that class was that it was a shame that Charlie Kirk died because he was such a huge figure in the right-wing movement. And now who will the left debate? Now there's no one to have like productive conversations with. He used that word. Of course, everyone's saying this. They were all male students. Like there were probably 5 or 6 male students who raised their hands right after me and just responded. So yeah, it just shows that white men will always choose to empathize with the people who look like them over any of the people who that man they're glorifying ever hurt.
Oh, for the listening audience, that was an Asian woman with the oversized leftist glasses. And she hit it all there, Victor. I don't feel bad. Some political assassinations are good. Not everyone has the right to free speech. And the white men in her class only stood up against her position that political assassinations need to be brought back, she said, because they identify with Charlie because he's a white man. Because only white people, white men, I guess, can feel bad about Charlie being murdered right in front of us.
Yeah, and where did she learn all that? That's the question. Where does all this come? You can say it's in the media, you can say it's in, but originally it comes from where she learned it. It comes from the university.
The wind up to those comments talked about that, about learning in a college textbook about
absolutely.
This kind of thing.
I can tell you, I'm speaking from the Stanford campus. And I know it very well. And so the trans ideology, the critical race theory, the critical legal theory, the separate dorms, the safe spaces, the separate graduations, the set-asides on admissions, the violation of the Supreme Court's civil rights rulings, take all of that whole package, radical environmentalism, ban fossil fuels, all of that comes on the campus. And anybody knows that the administrators know it, it's part of the culture, and anybody knows if you're a conservative or a traditional speaker, you need security. I can tell you that personally. And if you are a leftist, you have an exemption. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows the profile of the faculty. They know it's indoctrination. And that's part of the problem, that we are raising an elite. Now, notice who's not sounding off on videos. It's not the working welder. It's not the electrician. It's not the guy who 10 hours a day is in an assembly plant with a high school education or went to trade school. It's a bi-coastal and elite group of people sometimes, and they're wealthy, they're elite, and they go to these schools and they're indoctrinated and they feel that there's no consequences for this crazy ideology because they live in the right zip code, they have enough money, they have status, they have letters after their names, they have credentials, and they're arrogant. And that is the base now of the Mondani and the Democratic Party. It's a frustrated professional class of overeducated, ignorant people, and they feel that I am so much more moral than anybody else, I'm so much smarter, and yet for some reason, I can't buy a brownstone in Manhattan. Oh my gosh, I'm so brilliant. I'm coming out of Oberlin and my parents are very wealthy, but my sociology degree or my studies degree doesn't give me, a brand new car. And they get frustrated, and that's who they are. They're the most spoiled, entitled group of ignorant people. And that's the sins of commission, not the omission, that they pay all this money and they're not educated. They get an English major, they don't know anything about Shakespeare because they get this stuff spoon-fed down their throat as an excuse of having to work and real study and real work and real exams.
And in some families, it's indoctrination that begins right in the living room, which is just stunning and wrong. I mean, it's one thing when you blame the academy. We've been knowing about that problem and blaming them for many years. But there are some families who are totally on board with indoctrinating their children into thinking political assassinations would be great, just as long as they're targeted against the right people. This clip is making the rounds on X. They've now identified this person. I don't see a name, but they say that the husband, she's married to a lieutenant colonel for the National Guard. They say she's a preschool teacher. We have not independently confirmed that, but I can show you the video of this woman trying to deliver news to her children that Taylor Swift got engaged. But watch the lead up to that moment here in SOT 29.
I have the best news ever.
What? Donald Trump died?
Second best news.
The vice president died?
Okay, third best news.
That Elon Musk died?
Okay, no. Nobody died. My best friend's getting married.
Which one is it?
Taylor Swift! Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce got engaged!
That is so wrong. It's abuse. And by the way, there is more information from the Daily Mail. Described as a progressive teacher, Krista Cole, a substitute teacher at Colorado Springs Public School. She's been placed on leave over the clip. Yeah, of course. Of course she has. She's since deleted her social media. She took that. First of all, she did that. She indoctrinated them. She took that video. She posted it. The reason I see it and you see it is because she's proud of what she's doing to her little girls there, Victor.
She is, and I don't want to be reductionist, but she got her teaching credential from a school of education. She went to the university, and she's part of the teachers union if she's full-time and maybe part-time, and she understands that the school of education does not teach you any real method. It doesn't teach you any knowledge. All it teaches you is what is left-wing indoctrination and the methods to indoctrinate people on race, gender, etc. And then they have a coterie of unionized teachers that if you object to that, then you're going to be socially ostracized, etc. And that university trains all of our teachers from K through 12. And yes, you're right, they do indoctrinate their children, but that's just an extension of what they do in the classroom. And how do you break this cycle? I think you have to do two things. I think Trump is doing the right thing to call the higher education, especially the elite, to account. But all of us have to just say, you know what? If Yale gives 80% A's or Stanford lets in 9% of their student body as white males, they're not really universities. It's no big thing to say you work at Stanford or you have a BA from Yale. It doesn't mean anything anymore. They destroyed they're sort of like, I don't know, Target or Bud Light. That's the way I look at it. I think if everybody, and I think people are. I think a lot of parents do not want to send their kids to these schools anymore because they know they're going to come home as monsters at Thanksgiving. And so I think there's a lot of things are going on, Megyn, that we're not really sure of the ultimate effect because we're right in the middle of it. But there's something about the death of Charlie that followed from the death on the rail car that just said to people collectively, quietly, I've had enough. There's something different about the country, and I'm not going to let these people in the 248th year of this country take it over. I'm just not going to let it happen. I'm going to go out and vote. I'm going to register, and I got to do something. I think it's not like what we saw in 2020, but it's more powerful in some ways.
You've got now 54,000 new Turning Point chapters having been applied for, says Turning Point, by high school students and college students. The youth has turned on the left. they saw Charlie as one of theirs, as someone who would take the time to care about them, to talk to them, even if they weren't on his side politically. And now they see what their side has done and how their side is celebrating his cold-blooded murder. That's what's driving these 54,000 new applications from a group that only had 2,000 college and high school campuses covered before Charlie's death. I mean, I can't do the math on that, but it's a huge number by which it's gone up if you want to do percentages. And it's not going to stop. I mean, the country's really deeply moved by Charlie's message, which is now ubiquitous. It's everywhere. By the hatred that the left is showing toward him. And here, like, on the subject of faith, Victor, like, Charlie's proselytizing, his messages of believing in Jesus and what Jesus would want for you, and how he sees us all as God's children and believes everyone can change and in the goodness of everyone, are everywhere. And these young people, many of whom are applying for these to open up TP USA chapters at their colleges or high schools, are seeing it. Here is like the opposite of the videos we've been showing. And I mean, I could have taken dozens. I have so many examples of these, but I just chose one. This is a TikToker named Amelia Grace. And listen to her in SOT 27B.
I don't know if anybody else is feeling it, but there has been this huge spiritual shift since the death of Charlie Kirk. Now, let me be very clear when I say I had no idea who this man was until the assassination. And for whatever reason, I have just been like absolutely mourning this death, like as if I knew him. I turned away from God and pretty much stopped believing in everything altogether when I was about 17 years old. I am 28 now. And I am happy to say that I have recently found my way back. Let me be very clear when I say that it was not Charlie Kirk's death itself that brought me back to God, but the pure just evil that I have been seeing surrounding it. I keep seeing all of these quotes saying that if you feel this deeply about a man's death that you didn't know, it's because in your soul somewhere you knew that he was a brother in Christ. And I think that somewhere in my soul, because of this, I just felt this pull that I can't explain to just like to come back to God. I am happy to say that I have gotten my first Bible. I am giving my life to Jesus. I am coming back to my roots.
Charlie would be so proud of her. And there are so many just like her, Victor, out there reacting that way.
Yeah, I think so. I did a show in late August. I think it was the 23rd or 4th. And then I talked to him for 30 minutes. And I had gone out earlier to speak in Phoenix. What was unique about him, he wasn't just peddling a political agenda. He was trying to address, I think, root causes. And what he talked about was the blue state model of atheism, infertility, 1.4. We talked about that. The fertility rate of the top 10 states that's about 1.9 to 2 are red, and the bottom 1.2 to 1.3 are blue. And he talked about the age when people are getting married, it's gone way up. The age when they have their first, if any, child gone way up. The age when they can buy a house is gone way up. And it was part of a political, economic, social, cultural atmosphere in these blue cities and blue states. And it's nihilistic, it's suicidal. It's all about personal appetites, gratification, professionalism, pseudo-education, credentialing, but it's not about we're going to have a nuclear family, two-parent family. We're going to try to have children. We're going to try to reproduce the species. We're going to try to inculcate people in the idea of a transcendent soul and body and a higher none of that. And he was very adroit at getting that message in comprehensible terms to young people. He's basically saying to them, you're on a campus and all of the messaging and narratives that you're receiving are nihilistic. They're suicidal. They lead to civilizational decline and destruction. And he said it, he didn't say it the way I did it. He said it in a much more upbeat fashion. But that was what he was working on when he was killed. And I think and that's one of the reasons, Megyn, if you look at what he did, I don't think people have talked enough about it. There was a lot of reasons why Donald Trump won, but one of them, I don't know if it's the chief one, but one of the reasons was that he gained 6% of the national vote of young people from 19 to 40, but more importantly, in 3 states, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, where Charlie was really active, voting, trying to get people to register and vote, he got 17 and 18 to 23% higher, Trump did, than in 2020. In Michigan, the youth vote was split 49-49. And that was largely because he and people like him were giving this message to people: you don't have to vote and reflect and be politically aligned with these messages you're getting on this campus, because they're going to lead to your personal unhappiness. You're not going to have children. You're not going to be happily married. You're not going to have a house. You're not going to want to go to church. You're not going to believe in God. You're not going to believe in your community. You're just going to be a nihilist, cynic, skeptic, and bitter person as you age, and all the degrees in the world are not going to help you. All the titles, all the zip codes, all the money, it's not going to help you. That was a very powerful message, and I think that's one of the reasons Donald Trump won the election with that demographic.
You know, Andrew Colvett, who's Charlie's right-hand man on his show, is he put out a tweet that read something to the effect of, "We thought they were college, prove me wrong type debates, whatever. We thought that's what we were doing. We were actually doing tent revivals. I see it so clearly now," he said. And he's right. Like it was having the effect, whether they knew it or not, of reviving the faith of an entire generation of young people who had lost it or had never had it to begin with. Victor, how many times have we talked about wokeism as this leftist, pernicious, sick religion, and that it could even be treated as a religion, that we could object to them teaching our children in schools in the same way we would object if they just taught Islam theology in all of our K through 12 schools. It is a sick religion, and it was used. First, they got rid of religion at all. They got rid of Christian beliefs out of the public square, out of our schools, prayers under God, all of it removed, scrubbed. And then they replaced it with this sickness, the woke mind virus, political, whatever you want to call it. But it was so unnourishing and sick and dangerous that young people genuinely started to reject it. I mean, I see that in Gen Z, in the tail end of Gen Z, and even in my own house and with their friends. They rejected it. They knew it had gone too far, that it was dangerous. And Charlie came along just at the right time with an alternative, the original. Here's this other thing that we used to have and love and lean into that was actually nourishing and enriching. And it spoke to them, Victor, and it still does. Charlie's gone, but that message is still there and resonating.
Yeah, and historically, there's these periods of mass craziness. There was a first century AD in Rome, when you can read novels like Petronius the Satyricon about what? Trans, cross-dressing, gender reassignment, decadence, atheism, foreign cults. You saw the same thing in the French Revolution with the Jacobins, Robespierre, just a total madness where they killed 7,000 nuns. They renamed the days of the year, the days of the week. They worshiped somebody called Ratio, the divine rational deity. Secularism. We saw it with the anarchist movement in the late 19th century. So we have these periods, and this is what we're in. We're in a complete period of left-wing derangement, and it's not, the problem, Megyn, is that they're not just crazy, they're dangerous, very dangerous, violent people. And they're very unhappy people. And it's usually, these movements usually they don't start with the lower classes or the poor. They start from the top down or the upper middle class, and they're always based on historically envy and jealousy that I am entitled because I'm articulate and I can speak and I read and I know Voltaire and I know Rousseau, or I've read Cicero, and I deserve more, and these people, these stupid people are making money, and they don't appreciate, and it's really a self-referential, self-obsessed, narcissistic cult, and it manifests itself in our lifetime and at this particular moment in these movements, these crazy Antifa, Black Lives Matter, trans, but it's all got the same common denominator.
Right, the ugliness of
it is
of the leftist messaging. I want to, in the last minute before we take a break, go out with the following thing. I saw it on X this morning, and it is a song by singer Diesel for Charlie. It's called "How Dare They," and I listened to it this morning and I just cried. It really moving. Take a listen here.
Name was Charlie. Husband, daddy, voice for the kids. Lord, why'd it go down like that? Stage lights cold as a winter rain. One breath, one prayer, then the world went strange. Crowd froze up when the thunder cracked. Truth on a mic and a life attacked. He talked about hope in a storming land. Bible in the heart and a promise in his hands, but a shadow reached from a coward's perch, cut down a son in the middle of church. And I swear if the tables turned the other way, y'all know there'd be fires in the streets today. But here we stand with candles and a folded flag, begging God for mercy on the road we drag. How dare they steal the breath from a faithful man? How dare they stain the grass where his boots once stand? They call us evil, point at our cross, then pull that trigger.
Grand Canyon University, a private Christian university in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona, believes that we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. GCU believes in equal opportunity and that the American dream starts with purpose. By honoring your career calling, you can impact your family, friends, and your community. Change the world for good by putting others before yourself. Whether your pursuit involves a bachelor's, master's, or doctoral degree, GCU's online, on-campus, and hybrid learning environments are designed to help you achieve your unique academic, personal, and professional goals. With over 340 academic programs, GCU meets you where you are, providing a path to help you fulfill your dreams. The pursuit to serve others is yours. Let it flourish. Find your purpose at Grand Canyon University. Private, Christian, affordable. Visit gcu.edu. We absolutely have to keep talking. It's more important now than ever. To cower, to hide, to go silent is not the answer. And all I can tell you is there is no fucking way I am canceling one stop on this tour. Not one stop. I'm going. I'm going to stand on these stages and I'm going to say all the things that we say all the time on this show. We're gonna make it safe for me. We're gonna make it safe for my team and my guests and you. We're going coast to coast and do something really important, which is say what's true and what's real to honor him. I really now more than ever would love to see you all face to face. God, I would love to see you face to face. I need to see you face to face. I am doing this tour and I would love for you to join me. MegynKelly.com for the tickets. That song was so moving. I'm like completely floored by it that it reminded me I wanted to tell you about something else I read. And it's by our pal, Joseph Massey, our favorite poet, the official poet of the Megyn Kelly Show. And hopefully of your home too, because he's amazing and he's been through a lot and he writes the most beautiful poems and self-publishes since he was canceled by the evil, truly evil poetry world, but continues to write and be there for us in times of celebration, like when Trump won, and in times of mourning, like right now. And let me just read you. It's not long. Hopefully he won't mind. I'm reading his poem, In Memoriam for Charlie Kirk. Under a Technicolor Utah sky, in the clear September air, in the commons made uncommon, a man spoke through riptides of Babylonian confusion, and he spoke with the light of the word of life, and that light dispelled the darkness that cannot comprehend its truth. In the clear air, the bright and open air, a man spoke. And as the sky cracked to silence him, how many mouths gasped at once, a terrible hush like a rogue wave crashing. But he was not silenced. The assassin slithered into ruin, but he was not silenced. His words extend now into time in concentric circles, further than before and further still. Martyr for truth and in truth, alive. America, may the Holy Spirit inflame and guide our tongues, and let everything that breathes praise the Lord. Let everything that breathes praise the Lord. Let everything that breathes praise the Lord. That's so beautiful, by Joseph Massey. You should definitely go to his website. Just Google Joseph Massey and it'll take you there. You can buy his books, including America is the Poem, to see more of his writings. Back with me now is Victor Davis Hanson, Victor's book. He's got a book, and he's so worth reading. You'll learn everything you need to know in life if you just read VDH. It's the end of everything. It's out now in paperback this month, and it's been updated with new information, so check it out. And VDH will be joining yours truly on the Megyn Kelly live tour. He and I will be coming to Bakersfield, California on November 20th together. And that happens to be the tour stop where Charlie was supposed to join as well. But the tour goes on. We must continue, and we really hope that we will see you there. Obviously, we will be thinking about Charlie that night, and I'm really honored, Victor, that you're going to come, that notwithstanding what you said about security, and I understand it, intimately, that you're going to come. And everybody should know you can get tickets to see Victor and yours truly and the entire tour at megynkelly.com. But my true gratitude to you, Victor, for saying yes in the first place and saying yes notwithstanding what's happened.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. And I actually live about an hour and a half away, or 2 hours and a half away. And Bakersfield's one of my favorite cities. It's actually in kind of a renaissance now. So it's a wonderful place. And I always like going there. I go there a lot. So
it's going to be, it's going to be an emotional one. I think of like all the tour stops that we're looking at. That one's going to be very emotional since Charlie was supposed to be there. And we're going to Glendale, Arizona, which is right by where he lived, which will also be an emotional one. But, our general hope is to keep it fun and upbeat and, exciting and a great time for the audience. But there's moments, as my daughter used to call them, not tears of joy, but joy of tears. Sometimes you can have joy of tears. They can be cathartic. Ideally, you can laugh through them and you can find moments of levity, notwithstanding the moments of sadness we're all feeling. I want to tell you that all week, Charlie's team has been having people who were close to Charlie guest host his show. On Monday, it was J.D. Vance. Yesterday, it was the guys from the Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, and Michael Knowles. And today, it's Glenn Beck. And Glenn, in the James Rosen obit on Charlie, he, I think, mentioned this, but Glenn is the person like Charlie looked up to. He lived for Rush Limbaugh when he was in high school, and he loved Glenn Beck. And he tweeted at Glenn Beck, I'm a 17-year-old in like a liberal high school. I'm standing up with the Tea Party and for, limited government spending. Can't remember exactly how he put it, but said something like, fight liberal bias. And he added Glenn Beck on his tweet, and they've known each other a long time. And Glenn showed up there today with the microphone of Rush Limbaugh, which Rush's widow, Catherine, gave to him after Rush passed. Watch this.
Brought something with me today that I thought was appropriate while I did the show, that I would sit in front of Charlie's microphone. It was given to me after the death of Rush Limbaugh by his wife. It is Rush's golden microphone.
Aw, sweet Glenn. Glenn overcome by emotion there. It's hard, Victor. It's been a very tough week. I think a lot of us are feeling it, just feeling, even people who didn't know Charlie, I've heard from, thousands of people, and I've seen their testimonials on the internet. People are feeling it so deeply because they feel like they knew Charlie. You know, all of these video, and there's endless tape of him, have really made a difference. People are like seriously in mourning, even people who were strangers to him.
It's in Europe. I cannot believe it. It's worldwide. There's people who feel that he, even though he wasn't speaking to Ireland or Britain or Greece or France or Italy in particular, that the message resonated with them and they understood that they were in a dilemma, and that sort of the problem that he outlined and the solutions that he offered applied to them, and they appreciated that, especially given that they were demonized by the same forces that he was. So he's becoming kind of a mythical person. Not that he wasn't a real person and with all that achievement, but I don't think the left had any idea what they did. They had no idea.
And they must be scared now. I mean, that would explain some of the disassembling. They had a memorial for him 2 nights ago at Arizona State University, and it was packed. They did the iPhone on. We used to do it with candles or your lighter. They did the iPhone on lights. Look at this. I mean, just tens of thousands from the look of it showed up, and wall to wall. We saw the march. Look at this. Definitely tens of thousands of people. The march in Great Britain, which was by Tommy Robinson for Great Britain's independence from this incredible fascist overreach there. And by that, I mean the takeover of illegals, the crackdown on free speech, which is also, for Charlie, had between 1 and 3 million people out there. I mean, it was crazy, the numbers. They were chanting Charlie's name. South Korea, same. He was in Japan, not this past Sunday. Obviously, he passed a week ago today, but the Sunday before he died. And a friend of mine, oh gosh, I want to make sure I get it right. A friend of mine told me a story about Charlie texting him because this friend had been to Japan a bunch of times and I think has a home there. And he told me the following. He called me on Sunday night from Japan before a speech. We talked about how some there don't like General MacArthur and what he did there. Charlie said he loved MacArthur and had named his son's middle name after him. He was so proud of his last speech in Japan because it really was a spiritual one for him. What I see on the internet right now is like person after person getting it, seeing it. And I want to show you just one example here. This is a bunch of kids. For the listening audience, we're going to play this in SOT 42. It's per my GSD Nation on Instagram. The kids in this video I'm about to show are largely single digits, maybe up to 10. Let's watch.
I am Charlie Kirk.
I am Charlie Kirk.
I am Charlie Kirk.
I am Charlie Kirk.
I am Charlie Kirk. I am Charlie Kirk. I am Charlie Kirk. I am Charlie Kirk.
I am Charlie Kirk.
I am Charlie Kirk. I am Charlie Kirk. I am Charlie Kirk. I am Charlie Kirk. I am Charlie Kirk. I am Charlie Kirk.
I am Charlie Kirk.
I am Charlie Kirk.
I am Charlie Kirk.
You got it.
And we are just getting started.
You guys give me great hope. God bless you.
Oh, that's the left's worst nightmare because we're finally going to fight for the children. Our side of rationality and reason, Victor, is finally not going to cede the children anymore.
Yeah, and I think, traditionally an administration loses badly the midterms, but I think they're also scared when you saw the spectacle they had put on with Kash Patel. I'd never seen anything like what Cory Booker or Adam Schiff. They were crazy. They were insane. Just the vitriol and anger, and I think a lot of it's panic. And if people really want to commemorate a voting age, Charlie Kirk, they'll go out and register and they will vote a little over a year from now. And I think they will readdress what should happen to every president. They lose the first midterms and their agenda gets derailed. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think for the first time, as I watch this, I think there's going to be a continual outpouring of support for what he stood for, and people are going to make a difference politically. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the reasons that you saw that spectacle of the hearings. And in general, the paranoia among the Democratic Senate.
I'm definitely going to
House.
get to that. Oh, we'll get to the Kash thing next. A couple more minutes on Charlie before we do. I've been wanting to show this soundbite for days now. It's on the topic of faith and Charlie's insistence, no matter who he was across from, that it could play a meaningful role in their life in making it better. This is Charlie with a group of porn stars and OnlyFans models, speaking to them directly. The same truth he said everywhere. This is the man that the left wants to tell us now was hateful. SOT 41.
Thank you guys for a respectful conversation, even though we see things very differently. And if you're engaged in the creation of that content, I think God has a better plan for you. I know that might sound preachy and not what you want to hear, but maybe you'll have an encounter with God, and Jesus loves all of you, and he can transform your life. He transformed my life, and every day is a new day, and it's a hopeful, beautiful life ahead of you. And God loves every single one of us. We're all sinners, and Jesus died.
I mean, you've
for
definitely
us.
been the most respectful one that I've seen.
Well, thank you. That's very kind, and I can tell you it's not me. If it was me, I'd be yelling and screaming. It's the Holy Spirit. It really is. I know it might sound silly, it might sound cliche, but Jesus has gone to work on my life. And so God bless you guys. Thank you for a great discussion.
Charlie, thank you for coming.
He had just spent 2 hours talking to them about what they do and why they do it. And that's how he treated them, with respect. You see that in every video, Victor. The people, even when people came up disrespectfully to him, and the crowd would sometimes jeer them, Charlie would quiet them down and say, stop, let them speak.
Yeah, you know, another aspect that people don't talk about him, but the times that I've talked to him, he left college when he was 18, but he was a voracious learner. Every time I had talked to him, he was asking what books to read, and he said he was always on a Hillsdale online course. He was self-taught, but the upside of all that was he knew what the university was about, because he was on all these campuses, but he wasn't a product of it. And I'm saying, I know the university does a lot of great things, especially in the STEM and math things, but in the humanities and social sciences, it has a toxic effect. And I think one of the strengths of his, that he didn't spend a lot of his life as a student, and he spent it instead with working class people and people who did not go to college. And then he used that earthiness and accessibility and skill in talking to normal people, and went back to the campus and talked to these people with respect, but he didn't talk like an academic or a professor or a fellow student to them, and that was new to them. And that they're in an insular world, but he wasn't part of that world, but he took the idea of working class and middle class America to that world, because he had not been in college, but he had been self-educated. So he was articulate, he was knowledgeable, but he was able to communicate to these students in a different way. He wasn't, he didn't have that nasal, twangy voice. He did not talk about as if he was degreed or credentialed. And he knew how to talk to people, and he considered them, the students, people, not students. And that was one of the reasons he was very effective.
The gaslighting about his killer motives and all that we talked about in our first hour. There were 2 sound bites I didn't get to that I want to. There's a second one from Matt Gutman. I've got to play it. It's SOT 6.
It's heartbreaking on so many levels, Kira. Obviously, Charlie Kirk was murdered brutally in front of a crowd of thousands of people who watched him being shot through the neck and then essentially bleed out in front of him. And on the other hand, there is this duality of a portrait of a very human person, a very human experience from this entire family. As you mentioned it, the mother who essentially discovered that it was her son who had done this, the kid who had got a 34 out of 36 on the ACTs, who had a 4.0, who got a full ride to college here. And I don't think I've ever experienced a press conference in which we've read text messages that are so fulsome, so robust, so apparently, allegedly self-incriminating, and yet on the other hand, so touching, right? With the suspect reaching out to his roommate, who is allegedly his boyfriend, who we understand, identified as male at birth, now identifies as female. And the terminology he used, he was trying to protect him. He kept calling him my love. My reason for doing this is to protect you, but also asking him to delete the messages and not speak to law enforcement. So there's this heartbreaking duality that we're seeing very tragically playing out.
Oh, okay. It's heartbreaking on so many levels. It's heartbreaking on one level. One level. Keep going.
They're going to have to get him off. He's done so much damage to the ABC. I mean, he's a pop philosopher, he's half educated, he's a fool. And that therapeutic gobbledygook, it just sounds so amoral and senseless, stupid. And I don't know why they'd have him on there, because he thinks that he's some kind of philosophical persona and he's going to enlighten us, but he just proves how stupid he is and heartless.
He was already suspended by ABC when Kobe died for erroneously reporting that all of Kobe's children had been killed in that helicopter crash. So he doesn't appear to be all that careful, because here again, he makes factual errors in addition to tonality and emotionality errors.
The only question I have about his inner circle is, did they notify the police the nanosecond they found out? I know that as a parent, you always worry about what your children are doing, but when you find out that your best friend or your lover, so-called lover, or someone in your household is a likely killer, how long do you wait? That's all I want to know. I want to know if some of the people on that chat list had prior warning, or he discussed things in a manner in which if somebody had come forward and said, he's saying things or he's imagining things that are really dangerous, and you need to take a look at him, if that would have made a difference. That's all my concern, but I don't find anything moving or loving about anything he said. Not one.
I don't either.
Not one letter.
You know, a lot of people have said that they may not believe that these text messages are from the shooter because they sound so like they have punctuation, they have capitalization. And I get it, because trust me, I have two teenagers and a 12-year-old too. And I mean, I'll write my kids these long, flowery texts like, I love you, I'm so proud of you, we'll meet you at the event, we can't wait to see you. And then I'll get back, Kay. You know, that's how young people text, and I get that. But it appears that this guy's other writings, because we do have some of his correspondence in like the Discord chats he was in, this gamer website, they also seem to track consistently with the way he wrote in these texts. We went through all of these on a lot of them on AM Update, but I'll just read the audience summations because you've referenced them a few times, and it's frustrating not to hear them. Robinson texts, the lover, I'm still okay, my love, but I'm stuck in Orem for a little while longer yet. Shouldn't be long until I can come home, but I got to grab my rifle still. To be honest, I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I'm sorry to involve you. Roommate, you weren't the one who did it, right? Robinson, I am. I'm sorry. Roommate, I thought they caught the person. Robinson, no, they grabbed some crazy old dude, then interrogated someone in similar clothing. I'd planned to grab my rifle from my drop point shortly after, but most of that side of town got locked down. It's quiet, almost enough to get out, but there's one vehicle lingering. Roommate, why? Robinson, why did I do it? Roommate, yeah. Robinson, I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I'm able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. Going to attempt to retrieve it again. Hopefully they've moved on. I haven't seen anything about them finding it. Roommate, how long have you been planning this? Robinson, a bit over a week, I believe. I can get close to it, but there is a squad car parked right by it. I think they already swept that spot, but I don't want to chance it. Robinson, I'm wishing I had circled back and grabbed it as soon as I got to my vehicle. I'm worried what my old man would do if I didn't bring back Grandpa's rifle. I don't know if it had a serial number, but it wouldn't trace to me. I worry about prints. I had to leave it in a bush where I changed outfits, didn't have the ability or time to bring it with. I might have to abandon it and hope they don't find prints. How the F will I explain losing it to my old man? Only thing I left was the rifle wrapped in a towel. Remember how I was engraving bullets? The effing messages are mostly a big meme. If I see notices bulge anywhere on Fox News, he says, I might have a stroke. All right, I'm going to have to leave it. That really effing sucks. I mean, Victor, first of all, there's nothing heartbreaking about that. There's nothing about the humanity. There's nothing touching about it whatsoever. This is a cold-blooded killer who's in the full body of the text messages says, guess that rifle really works. Haha. Granddad's rifle really got it done. So there's nothing touching. But I will say, like, the full confession in there that hits like every detail. I see why there are many people online who are like, this can't be real. I mean, have you heard that?
Yeah.
Have you read any of those pieces?
Well, I have, but I do think it's real, and they'll have forensics that can probably go onto his phone if he wrote it from a phone or computer, and they can look at all of his messages and the grammar and the syntax and see to what degree, if any, these are different. So they'll find out very quickly if they haven't already. But what bothered me about it was he just blew apart somebody's neck, and he's worried about whether his dad's going to get mad at him about the rifle. 2, he obviously thinks he's going to get away with it and live to an old age about it. And 3, I would like to know the time differential from the moment he said to the so-called partner, I did it, till when law enforcement was notified. And
oh yeah, the roommate did not notify law enforcement. They went to him.
Yes, and that's going to be very important because as I understand the law, you're not, if you have reason to believe that he's kidding or it just, you don't have to, but that wasn't kidding. He was very explicit. And then especially when he referenced, you saw me, I think I heard that right, carving the bullets or,
engraving the bullets.
That means that this person knew that he was actually engraving message on a bullet and that he had confessed, and this person did not come forward while there was Herculean effort to find him. And so I think there's going to be a lot of people that were either privy to what he was doing before that or had a good inclination of what he was doing or in the immediate aftermath of Charlie's death knew about it before law enforcement was notified. And if that's true, I think there's going to be a lot of co-conspirators.
Part of it reads to me like, I agree with you, the roommate knew. I think the roommate probably knew in advance. And I think some of that exchange may have been pre-set up between them. Yeah. I'll give you the big reveal. Just in case I get caught, I'll at least get you off the hook by, I'll be telling you, you'll be in disbelief. Oh, I'm shocked. It was you? That's kind of how it read to me. Because, you're the roommate. You see him engraving bullets.
Yes, that's where he slipped up when he mentioned
catch this, fascist. And, you don't say anything. And by the way, we're still not to the bottom of all these trans activists or trans people online who are saying, wait until September 10th, something big is coming. Charlie Kirk should be evaporated. You just wait. We got him. Maybe it's just chatter, maybe not, but I do believe the FBI is going to get to the bottom of that real quick. And if this roommate, who now the left is like, oh, he's so cooperative. They're so thrilled that there's a trans person involved. They don't like that piece of it, but they're like, he's cooperative, like he's some sort of a hero. He didn't call the police when he had this exchange. It was the parents.
That's a great point, because as soon as I heard that, I thought, why are the police, he's not cooperative. He didn't. He may have, when they confronted him and said, if you don't tell us, you're facing conspiracy to commit murder, and that's can be a life sentence now. Are you going to talk? Maybe he did, but he didn't come forward voluntarily when they were in an active investigation and shortened the process to finding him. And the other people who may have known didn't. And I don't think that the shooter meant to say, you saw me or you knew that I was engraving the bullets, because that gave it away. That maybe if that conversation was concocted to give him an alibi, that's not going to work, because that does show that this guy was in the room perhaps and saw him doing that, or was told that he was engraving bullets, and then maybe he knew the messaging and etc. Nobody just engraves bullet
posted online
casing.
Yesterday, and I do have empathy for the parents. I do. I cannot imagine. It's his fault. It's not his parents' fault. And they seem like they were good parents by, what we've read so far. Yeah. But I do have questions. I do have questions that I'd like to see answered about the parents, because obviously this kid now I'm doing what they did. This young man at some point went south, and something infected his brain. He got sucked into this far left ideology. He was gaming too often from the sound of it, got very out into this online culture of the gaming world, and went into some sort of a downward spiral. And what I did see online was the mother, when he was about 10, showing this big gaming system she had purchased for him when he's wearing the headphones, and her being like, we're never going to get him away from this now, or something to that effect. And that's exactly, of course, part of the problem. There are a lot of parents who do cede their child rearing to game consoles, and it becomes a babysitter. I don't know whether that's what happened here. but it's something I'd like to have an answer to, and to figure out exactly how he went from that guy that Matt Gutman was talking about, 4.0, nearly a perfect score on the ACTs and an 8-semester scholarship to the University of Utah, to left University of Utah after 1 semester, enrolled in a technical school, started dating a trans furry, and decides it's his right to take another life because he feels that person's full of hate.
Yeah, it's easy to double guess, but if I was a parent and I saw this transition in my son, and I am a parent of a son, and I saw him talking, and according to some reports, he was talking very radically, and he, in political terms, very radically. I don't think that I would allow him to have his grandfather's 30-06. And I don't know where he got it or whether the parents knew it, but first thing I would do is say to him, you're not going to be anywhere near a gun, and I'm going to lock them up. Because the way you're talking and the change in your lifestyle and the anger that you express is not healthy. And so the idea that he borrowed his grandfather's gun and he was very worried that he was going to get in trouble if he didn't bring it back, I just don't get that. I don't see anybody who had such evidence that he was undergoing a radical transformation, and he hated Charlie Kirk, and apparently he expressed that at dinner or there, as a guest. He
mentioned this event.
He mentioned that event. Why in the world did he have access to the family armory? I don't understand that at all.
It may have been a gift to him. I'm not sure where I read that. But even so, he's only 22. If you gave it, you can go get it. You're the parent still. You never stop being the parent.
Yes, you should. And how would they know if he said, I'm afraid they're going to find out that I lost it? Well, how would they know he've lost it if it was his? And, does he report back every week, I still have grandfather's gun?
Well, here's what happened. But that is spelled out in some of the text messages or by the police at the presser yesterday. I'm trying to remember who said it, the DA. The dad, this is very eerie when you think about it. The dad saw the pictures. First, the mom saw the pictures on TV that the FBI released. And she knew it was him. She recognized her son. And she called the dad. And the dad recognized him too. They both thought it was their son. And then they saw the picture the FBI released of the gun, which they found in that nearby wooded area. Mm-hmm. So they might have recognized that gun as the dad's his own father's gun that they'd gifted to Tyler, this suspected shooter. And they were putting 2 and 2 together. And then the dad called Tyler to see if he would pick up, to see where he was. And that's why Tyler's referencing, my dad's calling right now in the longer version of the text message. He's saying he's calling RN right now. And he, I think, didn't talk to him. He did talk to the mom, and he claimed he was homesick that day. This is on the 11th, the day after the event, and that he'd been homesick on the day before, September 10th. But I do wonder, the parents seem to know awfully quickly that it was their son. And it doesn't seem to have been like full of denial, like there's no way, So I bet there's more to the story. That's all I'm saying. I bet there's more. I bet you that one videotape of him, you guys, can we pull that over, of him when he got his scholarship into Utah University? And the mother's like, he's opening up the letter. And the mother is like, yay. I think it's the mother. Forgive me, she's off cam. But you can hear him join in with the cheer at the end. And he sounds off, Victor. He sounds off. And this is right at the precipice of becoming a man. He's, I think, 18 or so in this video. It's just as he's going off to college. And this is when, in that 18 to 25-year-old period, that we see some sort of a psychotic break or some sort of break with a lot of young men. Did they know something more? And I'm not trying to blame them. And this is not like it's the parents' fault. It's we as a free society need to know what, if any, warning signs were there so we can prevent something like this from happening again. We have it. Here's the video.
Okay. Congratulations. You have been selected to receive the Resident Presidential Scholarship from Utah State University. The value of this scholarship is approximately $32,000. This scholarship is available for 4 years or 8 semesters.
Just something off. I mean, I can see it. I'm sure my audience knows it too. There's something off. Anyway, your thoughts on it?
I'm just confused. I know that the law enforcement and the prosecutor were very careful not to prejudice their case and imply something they didn't have factual evidence. I respect that, but there's something about the narrative that the family was shocked. They had no idea. As soon as they got the message, they immediately called law enforcement. The lover or whatever he was completely cooperative. He's just helping us. There's just something about it doesn't ring accurate, or it's strained. Whereas I think there were people who, in the case of the lover or the associates on the chat line, had a good idea what was going on. And there were other people in that community that thought September 10th was going to be an iconic date. And I think these people did not come forward. And I think there might have been people in the family that hesitated too long, but that's just my own. And I think they were naive about the mental status of their own son and his access to a very powerful gun. And the fact that he knew that he was responsible for that gun and worried about not getting it back, or that they would find out that it was no longer in his possession, shows that they were aware that he had it and it was important to him. And
as you can see, the hate building, specific mentions of an upcoming event, him withdrawing more and more from you, him going over to left-wing ideology, him embracing, in the mother's own words, gay rights and trans ideology, now dating a trans furry. I don't know whether they knew that or they didn't, but they should have. All these are potential, they're not potential. They are warning signs that someone is having a mental health deterioration.
I agree, they are. And I don't know what to say. The whole thing, what's sad is that when you looked at the security, everybody said he didn't have good security, but it was more like he didn't have any security, because you look at where he was talking and you just survey about 4 rooftops and you would just think, I want one person on one of them with binoculars and a microphone so they can see if there's anybody up there.
I still don't know. I hope we find out exactly what the extent of the security was and how this failure happened. Same as we found out, after Butler, how the Secret Service failed. Not to blame people, not to this wasn't a presidential event. In fairness to the security guards, it wasn't. But there must be some reason why they chose to have the event in such an open air arena, like where a shooter could easily get up and fire straight down at Charlie.
I think there has to be a new.
That's taken into mind in any future public events. Go ahead, Victor.
Yeah, I just think if you're Donald Trump, I get worried when I see Donald Trump walking into a restaurant, you know what I mean? And there's people that are arguing with him. I just think that if you're a major Republican politician or you're a political activist, that because of the reaction to Charlie's death, that there are going to be a lot of people who still believe that if they were to do harm to you, kill you or wound you, that people would not mind at all, that they might get out of it. There might not be swift accountability, legal accountability, and they would be praised. And then that creates a climate in which I think we're in a new era. In the United States, we've had political assassinations, but unlike Europe or Mexico or Latin America, we don't go after media people. Some we have in the past, but not high-profile media. And he was a media person, podcaster, writer. And so it's kind of like a journalist now in Europe or Mexico that's taken out. And that's a bad precedent. I think we crossed a river, the Rubicon, and it's going to be I think everybody's going to have to be very careful, because I think there's a lot of people. I was on UU the day, and I said, I think you're going to see a lot of sympathy with the killer. We didn't know who it was, but I had no idea of the kind of stuff that we've watched and that you played today.
Well, and let's face it, I mean, you're right, but the people who need to worry are the people who are, pundits or journalists or podcast hosts on the right. It's those of us on the right who are getting shot down and killed. So as much as Abby Phillip or whoever wants to pretend this is a both sides situation, it isn't. The only example they keep pointing to, there are two. They point to Paul Pelosi. The guy who broke into the Paul Pelosi house and attacked Paul Pelosi was not a Republican. He was a pride flag bearing BLM boasting.
Yes, he had an Antifa flag at his communal home. There was an Antifa flag.
Lunatic. Lunatic is how that sentence
Illegal
ends.
alien from Canada.
And then there was the Minneapolis House Speaker, the Minnesota House Speaker, which that guy was a lunatic. He was a nut. And to the extent he had a political affiliation, it was with Tim Walz. He said Tim Walz told him to do it, to go kill demons. There was no MAGA affiliation. And by the way, there was nobody demonizing that House Speaker on the right. There was no campaign to call her a fascist or a Nazi like there was toward Charlie. And then after she died, you know how many Republicans celebrated her murder? Zero. Not like Charlie, where it's near ubiquitous on Blue Sky and even on X and Instagram. The number of videos that have gotten posted celebrating his murder is stomach turning. So that's it. It's us. It's people on the right who literally now need to worry for their lives. It's inexcusable.
Well, it's a message. It's saying to people on the right, oh, it's both sides, ha ha, but secretly we know it's only one side, and therefore you better be careful what you see. That's the intrinsic message. Be careful where you go. You shouldn't be out. You shouldn't speak. And of course, everybody has to speak more and speak out more clearly so that they don't get away with it. But they feel that there's a deterrent now and to suppress free speech, and you can't let that happen. But they know exactly. And on a larger point, we had the nominee for president of the United States, Kamala Harris, say that Donald Trump was a fascist. Joe Biden gave that Phantom of the Opera speech where he said that half the country were semi-fascist. And then we had, I don't want to name their names, but we had, I think, 9 generals, retired generals during the Trump first term, and then during the campaign, including the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, who called Donald Trump a fascist, and some worse, liar, equivalent to the jailer at Auschwitz. These were not colonels, these were not private. These were all in violation of Article 88 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Nothing happened. If you've got the highest military officers, retired mostly, saying that the President of the United States, their commander-in-chief, and they're subject to the Uniform Code, and they're calling him a fascist, and there's no consequences, or he's the equivalent of the people at Auschwitz. What does that message mean to somebody in the woodwork? It comes out and says, well, Donald Trump is a fascist, huh? Well, if somebody had killed Mussolini or Hitler, they would have been famous. And so that's the problem. And then it is coming from the left. It's always coming from the left. And
on that front, Randy Weingarten, of course, head of one of the largest teachers unions in America, is just out with a new book, Why Fascists Fear Teachers. It is published in Rolling Stone right now, an excerpt with the headline, Why Fascists Hate Critical Thinking. This is dated September 16th, 2025. They're not backing down 1 minute. And the headline, the subhead is Randy Weingarten's new book, Why Fascists Fear Teachers, reveals why Trump and the right demean teachers, slash school funding, and rewrite history by Randy Weingarten. They're not standing down one bit on that messaging, even though it's appeared now on bullet casings in an assassination.
We had the campaign, and New Republic put a picture of Donald Trump with a Hitler mustache that photoshopped that he was Hitler. This is after he'd been the first assassination attempt. No one said a word that he was Hitler. We've had members of Congress call Donald Trump a fascist. So if you keep saying that again and again and again, then you have that Luigi Mangione effect, that you can come out and you can kill an enemy of the people, and you can expect to be treated as a rock star, and you don't think, given our criminal justice system and our revolving door and our critical legal theory, and given what repeat felons have experienced, maybe DeCarlos Brown is a good example, that you're not going to really pay a price. If you're not going to pay a price and you're going to be canonized, then why not do it? That's their attitude. Since so many people of authority and prestige have already sanctioned the idea that the person you're targeting is an enemy of the people.
And they already have these empty lives to begin with, so what do they have to lose? All right, stand by. I got to take a quick break. Don't go away. BDH continues next. Football season is back on Prize Picks. We make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right when you make a decision can get you paid. So kick off the season right by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. With millions of users and billions of dollars awarded in winnings, Prize Picks is the place to put your takes to the test. Just pick 2 or more players across any sport, pick more or less on their projections, and if you're right, you could win big. Prize Picks is available in 40+ states, including, well, there's California, there's Texas, there's Florida, and Georgia. Prize Picks does not play around when it comes to your money. All transactions on the app are fast, safe, and secure. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code Megyn to get $50 instantly in lineups when you play $5. That's code Megyn on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly in lineups when you play $5. Win or lose, you're going to get $50 in lineups just for playing, guaranteed. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details. Prizepicks.com. You know how much my family and I love our dogs. Yes, even my sweet Strudwick. I cannot imagine life without them. They have a great life, but some dogs are not so lucky. And that's why I'm super glad to tell you about Delta Rescue. It's the largest no-kill, care for life animal sanctuary in the world. No kill. Those are the words you want to listen for before you make any donations to any sort of animal sanctuary. These guys have rescued thousands of dogs, plus cats and horses too. They provide all of their animals with shelter, safety, and most of all, love. They love these animals. And they've been doing this for more than 45 years now. Delta Rescue relies solely on contributions to stay open. And giving can bring tax benefits to you too. Speak with your estate planner about how you can grow your estate while helping animals in need. And check out the estate planning tab on their website to learn more. We love our Thunder and Strudwick, but want other dogs who need love to find it too. Visit deltarescue.org today to learn more. That's deltarescue.org. There have been 2 days of hearings involving Kash Patel, first in front of the Senate and now in front of the House. This exchange he just had with Eric Swallwell, Democrat from California, is burning up the internet. Let's watch it.
Anyone that has been terminated at the FBI has been done so because they failed to meet the muster in their constitutional obligation.
I will work on the audio-visual capabilities.
I'm going to borrow your terminology and call bullshit on your entire career in Congress. It has been a disgrace to the American people. You can reclaim your time all you want.
Chairman, you're going to allow a witness to speak this way?
Why don't you try serving your constituency by focusing on reducing violent crime in this country and the number of pedophiles that are legally harbored in your sanctuary cities in California? I'll work with you on that.
Regular order, Mr. Chairman.
So that was meaningful. Did you get anything out of that, Victor? That really resonated with you on its substance, did it not?
Yeah, I think what Kash Patel has to experience is that the Senate and the House people are going to shout and scream and yell, and what they want him to do is to lose his temper and, reply. And part of it's good. He's got to show them that he's defiant for this insanity, but I think he's going to have to, you can't get in a shouting match with those people because that's what they want. They want to shout, 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 and then they're going to say, I'm the inquirer and you're the public servant who's got to be sober, judicious, and quiet, why I malign you and defame you. And so it's effective up to a point to say, you know what, I'm not going to take this. But at that point, after you've made that point, I think they want you to end up shouting back and forth. That's all I know Kash. I've known him a long time. I like him. He's very bright. But I think he's got to realize that they're out to fire him. The left is. And they're trying to put pressure on every aspect of his career. They're trying to say he doesn't have the temperament, he's on social media too much, he shouldn't be in the media, and they are working on members of the Trump administration, and he's got to say, I'm going to go to Congress, I'm going to be defamed, I'm going to be maligned, I will be sharp and tell them not to do this, and then I'm going to keep my cool.
Yeah, he's fighting and talking over them, which is another way of kind of silencing the message. Yeah. I love the saying, don't fight with a pig. You get dirty and the pig likes it. That's exactly right. Like, it's truer words. It works for me. Here's another exchange with Representative Pramila Jayapal. She's a Democrat from Washington.
You are not answering the question. The question is,
I have. You just don't like the answer.
Are these women credible? It's a yes or no answer.
I have answered the question.
Well,
and
what is the answer?
I keep telling you, I'm the only FBI director that has welcomed new information in this case. This administration is the only one that has welcomed any new information in this case.
Is there a yes or no to
present
whether
new
the
credible
victims are
information?
credible?
Present new information.
Are the victims credible or not?
I'll tell you what happened in the last Trump administration.
Are they credible or not? You can't even
Victims
say.
credibly came forward, and you know what happened? President Trump authorized the indictments of Jeffrey Epstein.
Called them
not Biden,
a hoax.
not Obama.
Are you going to cover up?
No,
Are you going to continue to cover up for the rich and powerful men, including those that might be on this committee?
I can yell too, Mr. Chairman, but I don't want to yell above this.
The time belongs.
Oh, you don't say. Which ones in particular? He should have said who. Walk me through exactly what they do.
Exactly. He should have. He should have go through all of them.
Victor, this is such a, I don't know, it's all like performative, because some of those alleged victims are credible and some are not. I mean, the one who died, Virginia Giuffre, definitely told lies. I mean, repeated lies in her case. Was it all a lie? No. But I mean, what a inane, asinine question to ask him.
Yeah,
are they all credible? I don't know. How does he know sitting there?
The same thing of the people that are on his text messages or emails. Some of them went to the island. Some of them were dastardly and deserved to be indicted. But some of them just saw him somewhere and they thought, wow, he's got money. Maybe I'll text him and maybe he'll give money to my campaign, or maybe he'll help my foundation. So there were all different categories on all aspects of it. And that's, I think, what Kash was trying to say. They're going through the whole, but the subtext of the whole thing is they sat on this for the whole period under Joe Biden.
Yes.
They didn't mention it. No one talked about it. It wasn't an issue. It only came out. And then I think now the only remedy is just to let it all out there and let people sift through it.
Well, they did make some news on the investigation front into the Charlie Kirk defendant and whether domestic groups are out there funding violent attacks. There was an exchange between Kash Patel and Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri, Republican, yesterday on whether there are groups out there that are actually trying to fund violence in America. Watch this. Interesting exchange here in SOT 19.
Are you investigating any domestic cells that instigate or encourage or fund or in any way support attacks on churches or other houses of worship?
Senator, you raise an incredibly important point that most people don't look at. I've always said we follow the money. And whether it's terrorism or attacks based on ideology or attacks on institutions of faith or people of faith, someone's paying for it. And we are reverse tracing those steps. We are not stopping at the perpetrator themselves. We are reverse engineering to hold those accountable in our investigations to who funded them and knowingly funded them. And we will bring the appropriate steps against them with our partners at DOJ.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. We look forward to hearing reports on that progress.
I mean, that dovetails with what Stephen Miller said the other day to J.D. Vance when he was subbing in on Charlie's show. And Victor, it's about time.
Yeah, I mean, every time you see when you look at the demonstrations that were in the Columbia campus, or you look at the LA anti-ICE, you see all of these tents or all of this equipment or masks. They're all the same. They're all new. So somebody knows these protests, and that would include religious protests. They know them in advance, and they are supplying material for them and financial support. Because after all, a lot of these people they're not working. They're just out there constantly. And we know that some of the signs that they're all printed out and they go out. And especially the one that was really strange was the Tesla stuff. All of a sudden we had this epidemic that everybody was,
yes.
it was like a script. You go after Tesla, you run them off the road, you try to harass them, you go after dealerships, you key cars. Where do they get all the talking points? Why? And then it just dies down. And so I think it's going to be hard to find. He says he's attempting. It's going to be hard because they're going to say, well, we were just funding peaceful demonstrations. But to the degree that they're violent, and I think they're going to be able to do that. At least the IRS can look at them.
There was a good exchange between Senator Eric Schmidt, Republican from Missouri, and Kash Patel on left-wing violence. And I'm going to play this not for Kash's response, which wasn't much, but for Senator Schmidt's list of the examples. It was thorough and it was powerful. Here it is in SOT 18.
And don't give me this both sides bullshit. Mr. Director, I want to ask you. Tell me if each one of the following perpetrators or alleged perpetrators were acting from a left-wing or right-wing political violence. The man who tried to kill Republican congressman at the congressional baseball practice, nearly killing House Majority Leader Steve Scalise. Left-wing or right-wing violence?
Sir, I believe it was a left-wing ideology.
Okay. Burned down cities during the Summer of Love in the George Floyd riots. Left-wing violence or right-wing violence?
Sir, I'll rely on you on these. I don't have off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
Okay. Left-wing. The Waukesha Christmas Parade massacre. Left-wing or right-wing violence? Left-wing. The Lee Zeldin stabbing attempt. Left-wing or right-wing? Left-wing. The Covenant school shooting in Nashville. Left-wing or right-wing? Left-wing. The Butler, Pennsylvania assassination attempt on President Trump. Left-wing or right-wing? Left-wing. The Trump International West Palm Beach assassination attempt. Left-wing. The Abundant Life Christian school shooting. Left-wing. The United Care CEO's murder, left wing. Tesla's burned, keyed, damaged, firebombed, left wing, left wing. The murders at the Israeli embassy, left wing. The ICE facilities firebombed, left wing. The Minnesota Catholic school shooting, left wing. The anti-white Charlotte and North Carolina stabbing, left wing. The attempted Utah News State firebombing, left wing. And now, of course, the culmination of this vile trend, a left-wing assassination of Charlie Kirk.
Honestly, Victor, it leads me to ask, would anything get the leftists' attention? Like if Charlie's murder on camera doesn't change them into stopping with the violent rhetoric and the normalization of violence when it comes to our politics, what will it take?
I don't think it'll, I think what it'll take is a complete political repudiation, sort of what followed the hijacking of the Democratic Party by the McGovern people in '72, and when they got a complete landslide. And then except for Jimmy Carter's aberration of 4 years, there was 20 years of Republican governance. And that's the only thing they understand. And they don't understand that because they're idealistic or they're judicious and sober and judicious. They understand it because they don't have power. So the only thing they're going to understand is they're going to have to lose the House and the Senate again, and they're going to not win the presidency for the next 10 years. And then maybe, just maybe, it'll sink in that people don't want their message. But in that process, they're going to get angrier and angrier and angrier and double down and more radical until they implode. And then somebody has an intervention, a kind of a Fetterman intervention, not just one senator, but a bunch of people come forward and say, the people don't like us and we can't win and we have no power. So we've got to at least do a Bill Clinton, as he did in '92 or something. But they're not going to self-correct because they want to or it's the right thing. It's going to have to be imposed politically on them. But we're in some rough times because the more they feel impotent and given their arrogance and narcissism that they think they're better educated and more moral than the rest of us, and therefore they have a right of any means necessary or justified because the ends are so noble and so moral, and they are the bicoastal elite and they can do this. It's going to be a long haul. It really is. They're very dangerous people. I believe that. Yeah. I think they're very dangerous.
I totally agree with that too. There are some who are still normal, but not enough. And while they may be reaching out to those of us on the right now, they need to speak up to their own people.
They do.
So that the overwhelming message of the country is this has to stop. We can fight on politics. We can get into all the issues, but just stop with the constant fascist, Nazi, white supremacist. That does rile people up. We have seen too many examples of it. Anyway, Victor, I love having you on. I will be getting the new paper book, even though we have read The End of Everything, but I want to see the updated info. You guys should do it too. Check it out, and thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
We'll see y'all tomorrow.